right, welcome back to the podcast, you guys. I'm so excited for this episode because we are going to dive into our journey, not only myself as a web designer, but really both Willow and I as entrepreneurs, and really like what inspired us and got us even into this world, and why we wanted to work remote, and all the things, all the struggles, all the wins, everything in between. So let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So where should we start? Should we maybe give a quick little...
all the way back to square one.
Okay. Well, I feel like let's start with before we even started our businesses, like how did we even get inspired by this? Because I feel like we have a funny story about when we were maybe backpacking in Central America.
So I definitely always knew that I always strived for like this remote job. Knew that I wanted to go into marketing, had no idea what that would look like or what that meant. And Becca and I left high school. Becca dropped out. I graduated early and we went to Central America. And while we were in a small lake in Belize, we found a guy. I honestly don't even know his name, but he was the first person that we had ever met that was remote. He was a developer, I think, at the time, and he just turned us on to the idea that you don't need to be in an office.
And I remember so specifically, because we were in a hostel and it was like maybe $7 a night, and we paid to sleep in our hammocks up on the deck. Like we didn't even get like a bed. And we went down and they had this long dock into the lake, and he was swaying in his hammock with his laptop on his lap. And I remember when we sat down and talked, we were like drinking and we were young, like so not business minded, but we were like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm working. I'm like clocked in. He was like on Slack. And I was like, what the fuck is Slack? And it was definitely the most inspiring thing, because he had talked about how he had been traveling for like, I think he was on his like third or fourth month. And most people that we knew, you know, that would travel, especially for like those couple months, they'd have money saved. Yeah. And so they'd be like on a tight budget where they're like burning through their savings. And he would make money every single day. And so he was like, the most sustainable way to travel was making money while working. And I was like, damn, that's fucking unlocked. Like, so I want that.
We realized that we needed to tap in, and what that would be was so far from discovered at that point. So we dabbled, we learned about virtual assisting. We learned about kind of all of the entry level online service provider jobs, being a social media manager, copywriter, virtual assistant. But at the time, the landscape of those entry-level online service providing jobs was really, really different. Like I always say that at the time, it was like there was like a niche of work from home moms, but really like it was the Philippines as the VA community, at least that I was finding. And so finding and creating virtual assistant businesses that were even able to charge $20, $30 an hour was like kind of a new thing when all of your competitors were charging like $2 to $3 an hour. And so we dabbled. Becca became a virtual assistant. And then we did a little like Step Brothers-esque interview switch. Becca gave me a couple of my first clients. And it was interesting because, like I said, at that time, it was only women. Like even now, it's almost all women in the online space, but then it was only. And I felt like some resistance towards like jumping in as this like at then like 20-year-old guy being like, hey guys, hey women, want to hire me?
Hey girls.
And so I was really attracted to like seeing the online space as such an opportunity, but at the time feeling like I always say to Becca that this isn't real life. And I always felt like I felt that about this online space, thinking that it's a bubble or that it's not going to be real or that everyone's prices are higher than normal. And so I went into the agency world because I thought that it was real. And so I went from...
But really it was just shit.
Bullshit. Yes. And so I went from working as a virtual assistant to then getting a copywriting job in an industry that I was very unfamiliar with, but very interested in, which was blockchain. I wrote,
which is so weird because I feel like you have absolutely no interest in blockchain.
I know, but at the time I did, and I wrote about 1,300 different like long form, highly researched tweets. I was working in like a Discord group that this company was creating. And so I got to dabble into this first touch point of working remote. And this was in our phase of living in Hawaii, charging $25 an hour for these copywriting jobs, for these social media things, and really just trying to make things work on my end as you were kind of building your design foundation.
Yeah. And I would describe us 100% in like the solopreneur era of our business, because, and there's nothing wrong with that. I feel like that's like, there's always somewhere where you just have to start and just like take the first step and know that, you know, you're not going to be like at point Z when you're at point A. And so we just had to put in the time, but we definitely were struggling. I feel like we were in the position where I actually get a lot of comments on my TikTok of where they are at, and they're thinking about like, how do I book clients? I literally don't know how to find any of them. Do I go on Upwork? Like that time.
This was my Upwork phase.
Totally. And so we were just really trying to figure it out. And I think also when I think back to that time, I obviously was like super reliant on YouTube for resources, but also I had to still figure out so much on my own because YouTube resources and just resources in general were very limited.
Absolutely.
Like there was barely anything, especially on Showit. Like once I decided to go all in on Showit, when I would look up YouTube, it'd be like 3 fucking videos and like trash. And so I really had to figure it out. And I think that it is cool because it allowed us to really like roll up our sleeves and get dirty with it, you know, like we really had to put in the time that, you know, honestly, like thankfully for you now, it's way fucking easier for you.
We've created some of these resources that make it a hell of a lot easier.
The courses that I have, every single time I would sit down and be like, okay, what do I want to put in this? I tried to like sit down and think back to when I was starting, what would I want? Because I was in the exact same shoes that someone who's just starting is in now. And so I'm like hopefully relieving all of that like pressure and angst that I had. But because of that, it was fucking rough. And I feel like it took us like, not necessarily like longer, because I feel like our success actually came pretty like relatively quickly, but it did feel like we had to put in the time. Like I always kind of joke about it. I'm like, oh, you know, I used to like open up a bottle of wine and drink a glass or 5 and work until like 4 a.m. trying to figure it out. And I was just dedicated to making it work. So I was totally willing to do that. But I do think it can be easier now, which I'm so thankful for, you know, everyone in the space. But
I think that it also at that time where we were both at, and a lot of the people that are listening to this are at a similar time. If you call yourself if your title is like virtual assistant, social media manager, anything in that support role realm, when you are just starting, let's say you're like 3 to 9 months into your business, you are kind of desperately trying to acquire skills that do allow you, like that specific skill allows you to charge 3 to 5 to 10 times more for that one thing that you can work on than everything else. And I feel like at the time for me, I was offering like everything. Copywriting was the main thing, but it was like all of these different things that were on average about worth 25, 30 bucks an hour. But then at the time I learned a couple of skills. At the time it was like how to grow an Instagram page. And that was totally worth more like $100 an hour for you. You learned web design, which like immediately took you to like $200 an hour.
Well, I feel like you mentioned copywriting, and copywriting actually is totally a service that you could charge $100 an hour for. But what it is when you hone in on one specialized skill, you can charge 5 times more. Yep. Where if you are like a jack of all trade, you're going to be a VA that's probably maxed at $30 an hour, $40 an hour.
So to fast forward, actually, I think it's helpful. I was given this analogy when I was actually at the marketing agency that I went to after being in the like VA social media manager copywriting space. And I was desperately, continuously looking for raises and opportunities to up the amount of value that I was providing, also the amount of value that I was taking home. And I remember being told that there's a really big difference between being a generalist and being able to be given all of these items, all of these tasks, and you are going to figure it out and you're going to get it done. And you can charge relatively as a business, you pay that person a lot less for than a specialist that is going to work a lot less, but is going to be paid way more for those things that they specialize in. And that was honestly like this like mindset shift that I had to make of like, okay, while I do actually want to be more so in the generalist side of things, I need to find a couple of skills that I can specialize in, whether it's design, marketing, copy, whatever it is, that I need to figure these things out that do position me away and higher than a lot of my competitors. Yeah. And I feel like finding design, finding marketing strategy, all of those like higher level skills are really those things that during our business journey, even while we are still completely on this journey, are all still these skills that we're just trying to constantly up level.
Totally. Well, it's like when you hone in on that specialized skill, you get to charge more because you are alleviating all the other bullshit tasks.
Exactly.
So even your client, like it just is the way that the industry is, because your client, if you're a VA and you're like, you know, even if you're doing web design for your client as a VA, which is how I learned about it, you know, obviously you're going to think, oh, well, I should charge way more for that. But they're going to be like, no, you're at $30 an hour. I'm not paying you $100. What are you talking about? And you're like, but I'm also doing web design. And they're like, yeah, but you're also answering my emails and you're doing X, Y, and Z. That is literally someone else would do it for $20, $25 an hour and be stoked. And so it does like even out, where if you just hone in on that one skill that across the board is undeniably worth $100, you're going to be able to actually charge that.
So let's give some timeline context. So the time that we have talked about thus far has been 2017 and 2018.
No, you always go 1 year behind.
2018 and 2019. So to bring you to August of 2019, I was full-time at this agency doing social media strategy. Becca was building out Bold and Boho.
And launching it, which is so crazy.
August of 2019.
I always forget that you were still at your agency. No, but I guess that's true, because you quit like a few weeks later.
A few weeks later, because during that whole time, we were house sitting for my uncle in San Francisco.
Yes.
We were there for like a little, I want to say like a month. Yeah. We were there for a month and we were staying in like a bedroom, and Becca was literally in bed recording these training videos. And if you're a web designer, you know that Becca and I really preach the value of these training videos to give your clients so that you don't have to take on this online retainer. Well, these training videos were literally Becca 3-4 days just cranking out these videos in my uncle's bed, sending me on trips to go get tacos.
Well, I'm just going to be honest. Like Willow said, if you're a web designer, you know the value of having training videos. And if you're in PPP, like, you know that I like show you even behind the scenes of mine, but they are probably, and at least for me, maybe like, let me know if this is different for you, but it was the thing that I pushed off to the last minute, because I was like, it was also at a time that I wasn't really comfortable with showing up yet.
100%.
So I think that is like in correlation. Now I feel like I could knock out a ton of looms, but
it's like, hey, Becca, like, do you mind doing 48 loom videos real quick?
So, but I'm like, what the fuck? What am I going to say? It's a loom. And I even like in the beginning of them had like my little face in the corner. So then I felt like I had to like present myself. And then by the end, camera off, in bed, sideways. And it'd be like literally, I think 1 a.m. And then you'd wake up at 8 and I'd be like literally sideways again. Like, so this is where you find your navigation on and
But I remember launching, and it was funny too, because it was in a time of like, we're launching this entity. I wouldn't even necessarily call it like that we were launching a new business, because at the time it did feel like it was just like an extension of you and your design business.
No, I disagree.
Okay.
I feel like I totally disagree, because I think that I did a really good job prepping the launch, because in the summertime, we launched it in August, and then really like in May, I started taking on clients for beta. And that's like when I did the websites that I turned into templates. But I prepped my followers like that whole summer that Bold and Boho was about to launch.
And so also for contextual purposes, for anybody who is trying to build a template shop and thinks, Becca, I see your videos all the time, and I tried to build a template shop last weekend and I didn't get even halfway through my first template. It's not an overnight build. Like when we launched Bold and Boho, we were launching it as, hey, we're trying to launch a 6-figure business. And so I do honestly just want to pause and like throw out that Becca just said that she took on those beta clients in August, and we launched I'm sorry, yeah, took those beta clients on in May and launched in August. And I will not lie that every single week from May to August was a 40-hour plus week.
Yeah. And at least like thinking about it, strategizing about it,
redoing your templates, all of that.
I honestly obsessed over it.
Yeah.
And I know that I've talked about this before. I even feel like I've had like maybe a video or something about this, but I've said in the past, if you are not obsessed with what you're doing and your new business, you're probably going to quit or you're going to think about quitting probably more than wanting to keep going because it's going to be hard. And if you're not obsessed with the outcome, with the result, with the dream that you're holding and why you're putting in all the fucking late night hours, it's not going to be worth it.
100%.
And that's what I did. And I think from like the point from May to August, I literally put everything I had into it and it paid off. And so I think that, you know, people do, you know, get a little like triggered when they see my content and they're like, there's no way that you could do that. There's no way that I could do that. I'm like, if you put in the fucking work, you can. But if you're not willing to put in the work, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. It's like when you're listening to this and you're like, but Becca, it's like you have to like come in on like, what is your why? Why do you want this business? Is it a template shop? Is it being a web designer? Is it creating an income stream? Why do you want it? Okay, figure it out. We've confronted it. We've acknowledged it and realized it. Now get ready to work your fucking ass off. And like, it doesn't stop. And what you find is that what you're working your ass off for becomes your new motivation of why every day you want to wake up and continue doing it.
100%. And I will just say, you just like brought up, but why? But Becca, that's like the number one way that if you have that mindset, you are basically putting on, like you're just laying roadblocks in front of you continuously. Like that is a mindset thing that if you are listening to this and you are inspired and you want to do this, try starting right now, like today, switching your buts and whys and all of the like, oh, but what if I can't, all of that shit into like, I know I can do this. Even if I don't know how, I will figure it out. And even if I am not aware that that's possible for me, I'm going to believe it and I'm going to set out and try and figure it out. You know, like switching that whole mindset of like,
or in simple terms, just think about how fucking pissed you're going to be if in a couple of months you look back and you're like, damn, I didn't even try.
True.
Like, think about actually what you have to lose. It's not that much. Like, maybe you have two people from your real life being like, damn, look at so-and-so on their Instagram. Like,
no, totally. And I will say, so I just did a podcast interview with an old client yesterday. And I said something along the lines of like, the reason why I think I built the business that I did so quickly and even just like have continued my success the way that I have is because I had no plan B. And I think that I decided that it was just like a decision that I made when I first started. And I was like, I'm going all in and there's no fucking plan B, because by the time 2018 rolled around, I had left my waitress job. And I knew, where I feel like I even sometimes hear people, and it's okay, but like just try and reframe this, where it's like, oh, but like I might just need to go back to serving, or, oh, I might just need to go back and get another 9 to 5. But if you're so 100% dedicated that that is not an option, you will put in the work and you will make it work, because I had no other option. Even if I technically did have another option, I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. So I'm going to go this one path. This is my plan A and my only option. And that's what I'm going to do.
And I think that there is some nuance to this of our age. And I think that, you know, like if you're listening to this and you feel like, hey, realistically, but Becca is pretty valid in that, like, I have children and a mortgage and all of these things that like this 9 to 5 or whatever the secure job does hold. I do think that as you get older and your life does become more developed, that is harder to disattach from. And I think that for everyone who's listening, and most of our audience is probably under 30, and at that point, if you are, you know, in the boat of not having kids and not having the crazy inflated, like all these bills and all of this responsibility, you are actually in this sweet spot of not needing a plan B. And I think that that was something that honestly really worked to our advantage of kind of entering this online space early. We entered when we were 20 years old, and as our evolutions had evolved, I'm really excited to kind of jump into this next chapter of our business journeys of us both being business owners. I honestly started working with a lot of online service providers offering coaching, consulting, at first starting with like specializing in Pinterest, and then bridging out into kind of just marketing strategy for all sorts of online service providers. And I worked, because of coincidentally a lot of the demand that I got, I worked with a lot of online service providers that were like 18 to 23. And
you honestly did.
I really did. Like I started working with one girl, she was from Canada and she was 18 years old. And I was like, this is really weird. But also I had only been working prior to that with women that were like 35 plus. And it was so different to work with someone that was young and 100% willing to learn and relatively like zero responsibility. Like this girl lived at home, her parents paid for the coaching program. And it was like,
and maybe even like less resistance.
That's what I mean by the less responsibility of that. Like, you don't even need to be worried about a plan B, because the plan A that you're on right now, like release all of the thoughts and reasons why it's not going to work. And I think that that is so big to understand at the beginning, because our minds constantly tell us why it's not going to work. Like I know that Becca knows that. We are constantly,
I feel like I don't know that
affirmed.
anymore.
Well, I wish that Becca knew that. And when we give ourselves all these ideas as to why we can't, charge that, or why we shouldn't post this video because the background looks like our house is so messy, or like because my voice sounds like shit, or there's some crying baby in the background, all of it is really just at the beginning. It's just starting. And like I had a comment yesterday in our wealthy web designer community. And it was from a student of ours. I've had a lot of contact with them. We've actually interviewed them on our podcast. And they were talking about really struggling with finding clients and finding like this like structure of how to sell on their stories. Because obviously if you're an online service provider, selling on your stories, and it's a really good way to get clients. And I responded back with a pretty simple response in that you have to give yourself enough volume to start optimizing it. And at the beginning, if you are not posting, you can't make it better. You can't improve it. You can't sell better. You can't sell more. And so at the beginning, during these phases of like us trying, us failing, us putting our all into launching Bold and Boho and then launching the customization of it, all of those, you have to just like release the caring of the reasons why it's not going to work, because nobody else is thinking about those reasons other than you.
Well, it's like the great famous quote of like, messy action is better than no action.
Yeah.
And that's definitely words that I lived by, because all the things that you just mentioned, like maybe your house is messy, maybe whatever. Like I look back, and sometimes I look back and I'm like, holy fuck, that's so cringe. I can't believe that I showed up like that. But I feel like I truly like embodied that message. 100%. And so I look back at those videos and I'm like, no makeup, glasses on, messy ass bun. I'm in like my house, like you can see my bed isn't made behind me. There's like dishes everywhere. And I'm like, get it, Becca. Like good fucking job for showing up. Yep. Even though, most of the time, if you look at that, you'd be like, make the bed, do the dishes, do all the things so that by the time you're ready to go on camera, you're like uninspired and you're fucking tired. And so I think that trying to like release the perfectionism is like the most important thing.
It's like releasing it, yes, but it's also just like acknowledging that at the beginning, you're gonna suck at it. Like you're not going to be great when you jump onto video, and you're not going to be this like amazing video salesperson. Yeah. But guess what? You're going to learn how to get a lot better. Like I remember all the time coaching people when I got into that phase of like people being so afraid of how they're going to perform on their sales calls. And I'm like, do you expect that right now you're going to be like a pro at sales calls, like selling people, working through objections, convincing somebody of stuff?
Just get on and chat and just like do it. Like
what the fuck?
I wanted to actually pull up like some of my old videos because they're pretty freaking funny. I know that we've had like a laugh about this, but I'm just going to try and play and see if you can hear me.
I think it really depends on the path that you're
But like, if you can hear this, and it's like,
then yes, I think
it's like so awkward, so slow,
talking so slow, not looking at the camera.
What I really want to show, and just like if you're not watching this and you're listening, so that video that I just played, that's one, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the same exact clips saved, because that's how many times I redid it. And so that is like a great example of just like fucking do it, rewatch it. If you don't like it, observe what you don't like and redo it. And I think just like that practice, like you said, you can't optimize unless you're like having the volume, where you don't need a strategy to start. Like just get it out there, put your message out there, let people know like what your life looks like what are you doing today? Take them along the journey of building your web design business, but just like put it out there, and then in a month, look back and then refine.
Literally.
Like just let it be fucking messy.
So let's jump back into like the timeline of the journey. So you had launched Bold and Boho. We were living in an apartment. We had just gotten engaged.
Oh my God.
And I quit my job.
I think that was before.
It was May of 2019.
Yeah.
So that was when you started. We were like, damn, I just locked in my mans. Now I'm about to lock in a template shop. And so you did. And then we took a little bit of like time to launch the shop. We launched it on Pinterest. I was able to quit my job at an agency. And at the time I was like, damn, Pinterest is really starting to work. I had learned about Pinterest at the agency, like from literally working with a sustainable women's fashion brand. It was their world and how they acquired a lot of their customers. And I like had this idea, why is this not being used by the online space? And at the time, I thought of the online space as Becca and all these coaches. That's just like what I thought of. And so I started to talk about it literally for like 2 weeks. I probably talked about it on my stories, butchering it, not doing it great. And then I put out an offer. Keep in mind, this is no website, no anything like that. This is me putting out a horribly designed Canva graphic of what is called the Pin to Sales method, a 4-week program for direct-to-consumer brands and 6-figure coaches to learn how to post on Pinterest. And I think that I launched it for like $1,200.
But I think you like sold out literally just in the
I did sell out. I sold 5 people, $1,200. And then those 5 people all honestly had insane results.
Yeah.
And
it was when Pinterest was like fucking
Pinterest was popping. Like literally, I was able to post probably 30 pins a month for Becca, get like 3 million views on them. And some of them I just had on a loop, where like Becca just did actually a video talking about this girl named Mara's website and how this one website changed Becca's life. This one pin literally consistently got like 1 million views a month and drove
so much traffic.
Probably 25% of Bold and Boho's traffic. And it was absolutely insane to watch it. And then from that point, the pandemic kind of started. So we got like all the scares, all the things.
I will just add before we move on though, that Pinterest is still there. Like, I feel like obviously we don't talk about it as much.
Yeah. It's not as big of a priority right now.
And it's also not like as like fresh and popping, just like how TikTok is. But if like you could still go on TikTok and blow up and go viral, where Pinterest still does have a ton of opportunity for people.
Absolutely. Especially if you are a designer that is trying to work within niches that aren't super saturated, and that if you look up your niche on Pinterest and you feel like there's an opportunity for you, fucking jump on it, because there are still so many that are untapped.
100%.
So at that point, the pandini started. We were all fucking COVIDed out and shit. Moved into a house where Becca and I got out of this apartment and into a house that had like damn near a farm, had a fucking apple orchard on it. And we started working. And right at that point, we had my little brother and sister over for the weekend. And we were like, Willow, let's make a TikTok account. And Becca helped me with the cheesiest of fucking cheeseball ideas of me like
so fucking cheesy
going like this. And
no, we honestly
in like 6 hours,
we have since then gotten high. Like we'll smoke like a joint and go back through all of our old TikTok videos. And literally, I swear to God, it's like watching a Seth Rogen video.
I'm, like,
it's like actually the
crying.
fucking
But Becca
funniest thing
thought
ever.
that she was like jumping into her like, you know, George Lucas era of directing these TikToks. And so jumped in, was telling me to do all these TikToks. I was doing them. And honestly, my first video got like 150,000 views in the first like 10 hours.
And then it just like,
and then it was like, damn, that was cool. Like maybe let's do it again. And so I like,
no, you know what we did?
What?
I made the same exact video. That's when you know it's cheesy, is if your husband can make a video on TikTok and go viral, and then you make the same exact fucking one.
But literally in that next week, genuinely like business completely changed. In 10 days, I got 10,000 followers. I probably posted 50 plus TikToks.
Our whole life changed.
And
literally that
I
weekend.
posted all these videos about Pinterest, literally like talking about it, talking about my results, talking about how to do it, how a couple of these pins had like gotten all these views. And I literally in that last like month and a half was really just like trying to get on board with what was happening, because as these views started to come in, I was like, holy shit, I need to create a freebie. I need to capture some of this. And so I whipped up a freebie. I found some copywriter to write me like a 5 or 6 email sequence to attach to this freebie. And I posted a video.
One time.
I posted one video talking about how these pins get like 28,000 resaves a month or something like that. Do you want to learn how? And I got 6,000 email opt-ins in the next couple of days from that one organic TikTok video.
Legit. If you like compare that to
How much you pay.
advertisement or something, like
Literally worth like, maybe that video could be worth $25,000.
that's fucking legit.
And so that started happening. And honestly, at that point, I had my website, like my Instagram links in my bio, and I allowed people to book my 90-minute intensive. It was the only thing that you could buy from me
Without like reaching out.
reaching out. It was like, I wanted it to be able to be an impulse purchase by all these new people that are seeing me and being like, wow, I think he could help. I want there to be something that's bookable right there. I literally booked like 65 90-minute intensives for the next couple of months. And from that point,
They were $497.
$497. So like $30,000 in intensives.
That's crazy.
And all of these different brands are Shopify brands. They are coaches. I honestly got to work with a couple of like random direct to consumer brands, like that one brand, Stay, that we had been like looking at on TikTok. And then all of a sudden, because my videos go viral, all these brands are like hitting me up that want to learn how to acquire organic traffic from Pinterest. And at the time it was popping. And as it began to grow, I really started to stack my weeks with clients. And this is right when you were launching, like, I feel like you had already launched template customization, but you were like, in it.
No,
with
you know what?
websites.
Website in a day.
Yeah.
It was like that same time when we moved to that house, and it was like
You set up your office. You had my little brother and I paint it for you. It was all nice.
Yeah. But I was making TikToks like primarily on my web design, like website in a day service, because I was just like balls deep in website in a day and client work. And it's so crazy because TikTok is just wild. Just social media in general. I always tell people when you go on social media, don't have a plan. Like just be open to all opportunities, because they will tell you what they want from you. And if you can listen and you're not like too like in your own way, then your whole life could change from it. But I went on to TikTok and I was just talking about my web design offers, and you know, I definitely actually booked a lot of clients from that. Like I had a lot of my website in a days.
I feel like
I've even
that's
done
where
recent,
you got all of your like bomb website in a day people.
for a good handful. Like I'm doing a series right now over on TikTok of like what I charged versus what I delivered. And actually a good handful of those are from TikTok people. So that's really cool. But majority were like, I don't give a fuck about that. How do you do this? How did you build this web design business? Because at that point I was like sitting around $20,000 to $30,000 months. And I was like, we were like 22, 23, no, 22 years old. So fucking crazy. And so I listened to that. So I then just started like doing responses to videos and just kind of like giving education, and was just like very transparent with what I've done. And people really wanted it. And so then a year later, what is it? April 2021. It's not even a year later. No, it's like 5 months later. I then launched Wealthy Web Designer, and it was literally out of like demand of people asking for it. And it's so funny because I remember we rented out a studio. I know we've like told this story before, but we rented out a studio. We fucking filmed. We like did the whole production thing. We had never done that before.
No.
We were just like figuring it all out. And I had like a whole game plan of like what I was going to teach in Wealthy Web Designer, knocked it out. Guess what? We go home and literally the SD card audio, was it the audio?
The audio literally sounded like you were in a fucking cave.
It was so bad. I actually look back and I wasn't as upset as I feel like maybe you would think someone would be upset, because I really took it as a sign, and I was like, okay, clearly whatever I just did isn't meant to be. And so I really sat with it. And then I think it took me another like month and a half to like redo it. I didn't force it, because like that day we like went and I literally sat there for like 9 hours straight and like filmed, where then the other time I actually, over the course of 6 weeks, when I was like in that like vibe of whatever module I'm teaching, I went and like filmed it. And so it was really like progressive. And so I think it was all meant to be, clearly. But then I think like right before we launched, we moved to LA. So then we landed in LA. Would have been like March. Were we there for your birthday? Because it would have been like March.
We moved there, I want to say it was like April 15th.
Okay, so literally like a week before Wealthy Web Designer went live. So it's so crazy because we moved to LA, and I feel like since we launched our website template shop in that August of 2019, our life just progressively, like almost every 6 months, a big life change would happen, and it would just be getting better and better and better. And that's exactly what LA was. Like, we moved out of our apartment into that house with an acre with an apple orchard. And that was like amazing because it was like during COVID, and we just like had land, and it was amazing and beautiful. But then when we got to LA, we literally had a 5-bedroom home, 3 stories high, with a private rooftop 360 view of literally Los Angeles. Like, the fact that that is even reality is like so fucking cool. Like, I'm so proud of us for making that happen. Like, what? But it felt like it was a new era, totally. Because I remember right before Wealthy Web Designer launched, we went up to Griffith Park and sat and overlooked LA, and we were definitely in our feels. We were like, what is life? I can't believe that this is like what we're doing. We're about to launch. Like, what do you think that this will do for us? Like, what do you think?
Or like, more so like, what would it do?
Like, where do you think this will take us? And we had no idea. And I was like, I don't know. It could like totally fucking flop, and like that's that. Or it could be a big success. And now I think it's very apparent like what it did for us, because it turned into its own whole thing. And it's so cool, because I actually think that, you know, by getting, you know, I think within the first year we had like 1,000 students or something, maybe 1,200 or something. I think that first year is also then when I continued to scale my web design business, because I think that by stepping into the role of becoming like a mentor for aspiring web designers, and, you know, being the person that's like inspiring them and motivating them, it motivated me to show then, well, fuck, I want to do more. Well, I just told them that they could make 20, 30K because that's what I'm making. And if I can do it, I know you can do it. But now I want to fucking raise the stakes. I want to push myself and see really what I can do. And that's
Fast
kind of always how
you literally doing 12 VIP days, website in a days in a month.
Well,
12 a month.
So the time to me that really stuck out, this would have been October of 2021. We were in Hawaii.
Okay.
And Hawaii, if you are new here, like, was such a special place to us, because this is like when we were like back in that like solopreneur phase. We were living in Hawaii and we fucking struggled. We put $20,000 on credit card debt. It was like so hard emotionally and mentally. And so I think in 2019, once Bold and Boho launched, we went back, sat on the same beach that we were like, we need to move away. We're like so stressed. This is not good for us, that we paid off our $20,000 in credit card debt. That was right after the template shop launched. So then in 2020, in 2021, in October, we were back in Hawaii and we were like low key big ballin'. We were like at the Ondas right in Maui and Wailea, and we're like drinking pina coladas. I bought like a day bed that was like $800 for the day. I like was like, fuck it. I'm going all out. I'm going to just like spoil us. And I remember sitting there, we were like drinking and having fun, and I wouldn't get off my phone. And you were like, can you just stop fucking working for a goddamn sec? And I was getting so many messages because I had just had a website in a week client launch their site and publicly announce it on Instagram and tagged me. And the amount of DMs that I got was insane.
Of wanting to work with me.
And literally that is was the first month from web design that I hit $50,000 in cash sales. And that was like the coolest thing because I was like having this amazing day. And obviously I was putting in the work. That's just like how I am. I always say like, if you have someone in your DMs, I think I literally even say this in Wealthy Web Designer, like if you have someone in your DMs ready to go, don't fucking wait until tomorrow or Monday, like close them, because fast action is going to be the best action. And that's exactly what I did. But because of that, I was willing to be on my phone, and it was like fun, and it was like celebratory because
what was I doing?
I don't know, probably like smoking your pen and hiding in the cabana. But it was like so cool because not only was I then like raising the bar and standard, let's say, for like what you can be as a web designer, I was also like, damn, like I fucking did this. Like I just made all that money while on vacation in Maui, and like it just felt full circle, and it was so cool. And so yeah, I will say like launching Wealthy Web Designer and just having all the students that we have now, it like motivates me to show what you can do as a web designer.
I love that. And I feel like that also just like really goes to show that when you find something that is obviously like profitable, but also something that feels like you actually get to feel good doing it. Yeah, you find that sweet spot. It's a creative outlet, and it becomes this thing that while you're on vacation, you're like designing, or while you're like going to sleep watching TV with, you know, somebody that you love, you're like still designing or thinking about it. And I think that like really having, you know, from my perspective, worked with so many different online service providers, there's few services that you can provide that actually can be thought of as a creative outlet and not working. Because if you're a coach or you're a social media manager or a strategist,
you can get paid for your creative outlet.
Absolutely. Because I feel like in that whole time, we were kind of finding that balance. And I'm excited to, this season, we have a really good episode talking about finding your work-life balance, because it really sounds pretty fucking simple, and it actually is really so hard. And I think that especially being young and being like money hungry, I'm not going to lie that we both are money hungry. And during those times, like I always think back. So it's funny. So we have a girl that is now, has been on our team for a long time. She's been she lives in Australia, and she was a client of mine during this phase of like she found me on TikTok, messaged me. And I always reference it as like my peak of not having work-life balance was because I had put out an offer, and I'll be honest, I put out this offer at like 10:15 p.m. on my story looking for new clients because I was up and I was hungry.
And she was in Australia,
ready,
so it's like
and
7
she
a.m.
just woke up, and so she messaged me. And we ended up DMing because I was ready to make the sale. And I DM'd her until like 3:15 a.m. Made the sale, obviously. And then she turned out to be like an amazing client, an amazing case study. She's now an amazing team member.
She's been on our team for like 3 years now.
And it's so cool to look back at that as being like my peak worst work-life balance as being a positive thing. I just really do think that it's wild because when you launched Wealthy Web Designer, it came from, you just said it came from demand. And so when you launch something out of demand, I launched my website out of demand. I launched my freebie out of demand. And some things, I would say like work in the short term and then like they fizzle out. That freebie that I launched that got 6,000 people, I would never have as a freebie now. Some things like do phase out. And Wealthy Web Designer, when you launched it, felt like something that in all hopes would not be that.
Absolutely.
And it's so crazy to now have optimized it, have improved it, have seen hundreds, if not thousands of people find amazing success. And at the beginning, I thought it was going to be like, I almost had this like scarcity that was like, okay, but Becca, like I used to always say like, but maybe are we going to like at some point hate it when we have so many competitors? Like you're literally giving everything that makes you successful to your students. And I almost was like afraid of that at the beginning of like how much competition we were going to create. And I feel like it is the coolest fucking thing to now see that while everyone that goes through the programs are kind of relatively given similar resources to each other,
but are so different from
everyone is different.
Yeah.
Every business looks different. Every person obviously looks different. And when we're talking about personal brand led creative businesses, I was so ignorant to thinking that the competition and all of these new service providers would even impact your ability to put out content and get clients for web design relatively for any service providing. Like right now, if you put out a call to action, the fact that you now have 4,000 students wouldn't change the response. And I feel like that when you launched, as the husband, as the like asshole in the other room, as the like person trying to like, make sure that we don't give away too much. I was so wrong by that. And I feel like that was like the coolest thing in this business journey to realize.
I love that. I mean, we've said this a lot and I feel like you caught on, but like there truly is no competition.
Yeah.
Like, unless you're just like straight up stealing people's
Right.
stuff.
I was going to say
like,
there might be a little.
There's like a line, but no, like if you're showing up as your true like authentic self and being creative and original, and like there's 7 billion plus people. Like how many fucking businesses are there just in the US alone? Like there are new businesses, especially online. So many businesses are going from being in person to online. And so it's just going to continue to grow and there's literally no competition. And I like stand by that. So I love that. Well, I think that this was a really fun episode.
I do too. And I want to throw out that before we end, like that these journeys that we're talking about are just getting started. And that while it might feel like if you're listening, like, oh my gosh, they just talked about so many eras and so many phases. I hope that if you're listening to this, you understand that by embarking on this business journey yourself, you are embarking upon a journey that's going to have many eras, lots of phases, lots of failures, lots of wow moments. And hopefully my biggest hope is that those wow moments and that those moments of celebration make every other moment worth it. Because at the end of the day, that's how I really truly feel about all of this. Even in the last, couple months have been like my most challenging, and it's still all worth it.
Yeah.
And so our journeys are just beginning. So are yours. And we will see you guys soon.